Okay, guys, thank you for joining me. This is just a kind of short notice session that I thought we would do for a couple of reasons, because there are a lot of new subscribers to the site that I've not met yet, and we haven't done a live bass lesson since May. So it'd be good to connect with you guys again, and also I wanted to talk a bit about, at the moment we're running a 10-day intensive live guitar course. I know some of you that will be tuning in will be involved in that course as well. It's going really well. We've got a great bunch of students, a great team of tutors, and each day we're doing a different topic, sometimes two topics. Things like Arabic makam music on the guitar, Chinese pentatonic music on the guitar, Latin American folk, different African styles, desert blues, and it's something we've really been enjoying doing, and we're thinking about the best way that we can offer monthly kind of rolling programs and memberships and more live content, because people seem to really enjoy the lessons and the courses that we've got, but it's obviously great when we can share the live stuff and you guys can have that interaction and directly get feedback from the tutors. They can, with these video calls, they can see what you're playing, they can give you the pointers, and these guys have got a lot of information to share, and sometimes doing it live is a great alternative way of getting it across in a different environment. So we want to know about if we can offer the same kind of program for bass, and what you guys would want to learn, whether you'd want to be doing regular live stuff, whether that would be weekly or monthly, or if you'd want to be involved in doing sort of year-long programs where we set up a whole syllabus that's quite intensive, and you'd know that after a year of study you would have got your head round all kinds of different specialist styles of music, that even if your regular trade is rock or pop, you can always use these teachings and use these grooves and techniques and different approaches to music making to make your own style sound more unique and original, and find other ways of fitting in with other musicians, because you've learned stuff from other cultures. And also, one thing that we really want to figure out is what are the best times of day to be running live stuff, because we've got students obviously from all over the world signing on. There's never going to be any best ideal time that works for everybody, but there might be a few different ranges of times that suit people in different parts of the world. We've got I don't know if he's on the call now, but one guy from Australia who's been tuning in at 4 p.m. London time every day for these live sessions, and which is about 3 o'clock in the morning, I guess, for him. But going through that on a daily basis for the love of guitar, and furthering that. So that's something I'd like to know from you all. But let's get started. So if you got your bass with you, tune it up, turn it up, and get ready. Get your hands warmed up, whatever you like to do. I thought I would just start simply about explaining what I would think is the difference between African styles of bass playing and Western styles of bass playing. A lot of it comes down to, we can use exactly the same notes. In most styles of music, they only use a scale with a maximum of 7 notes, with give or take a few chromatic or passing tones sometimes. But really, melodically, there are not a lot of different tools you could use in African music that you wouldn't use in pop or rock, for example. But the main thing that's very different is the rhythms, and that's how you define. That's how your ears would instantly define something's different, because they would recognize rhythms. So if we got, let's say we're in, bring my pretend kick drum a bit closer. If we're in classic African key F. We'll do a sort of Congolese style Soukous vibe. We've got 3 chords. The classic 1-4-5-4, F major, B flat, C, B flat. 2 crotchet beats on each chord. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So if we were playing straight 16ths like this, that's obviously not an African sounding bass riff at all. That's okay, we're going to show you how to vary the rhythm. So I'm just going to move this because it's going to start to get annoying as I start to play out of time and then throw you guys all off as well. Cool, hopefully you can still hear that. Okay, so just doing 16ths. You can see my right hand is just going with my first and second finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. So all we need to do to make that into an African rhythm is take some notes out and leave some space, and it is specifically which beats have the space that can make it into an African rhythm. So if I did something like I'm just using still those root notes, C, B flat, F, B flat, C, and yeah, I'm not varying that rhythm. This is a two bar progression. I'm doing the same rhythm. Yeah, I'm doing that rhythm on the F, the same rhythm on the C as I'm doing on the F. That's obviously not the only rhythm. There's many kind of syncopations and variations on where you put your notes. Just using those root notes. And then once you've got a groove, let's stick to this one, as it seems to kind of fit quite nicely. All we got to do to make that bit more interesting is we could actually keep the same rhythm, just change some of the notes, and we change them to chord tones generally. So a chord tone would mean the root third or fifth of the chord. So for F major, that is F, A and C. For B flat, we'll be using those B flat, D and F. And for C major, that's C, E and G. It's the simple triads of the chord, the one, third and fifth, first, third and fifth. So I could do something like that. So I'm just walking up to that B flat with the A, F, 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 A, B flat. And then exactly same rhythm on the C, G. I just to repeat that. So I'm just using the C and then the G to go to the B flat because it's the fifth below. And back to the F, F, B flat, C, B flat. I'll slow that down a bit in case some of you still need to get that. And if your hands are struggling with that and you haven't quite got the rhythm yet, you can just stop playing and sing it. Da 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 da. The pitch of what you sing isn't really important. We're just going for the rhythm. Da 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 dun dun da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Because you wouldn't be able to play something with your hands if you weren't able to sing that rhythm. It would be impossible. So that's one good thing to do. If you're struggling to get something, just sing along to it or clap along to it. Because sometimes when you try and play it on the bass, that's when your brain is then sending signals to the fingers, which is slightly, it's slightly less common just sending it to the voice and going dun ga da da, 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 dun, dun, da, da. So we'll speed that up a bit. And still keeping with that rhythm, we can add another note, let's say. So I'm just adding B flat going to the D. Do it slightly different that time. Dun, dun, dun. So I'm doing 2 B flats and then a D, 1, 2 D. And I guess as I'm hearing this rhythm, it's where I'm kind of cutting that D off. If I was playing that legato, it wouldn't quite have the same feel. You know, when we have notes that are staccato, I mean, it's not like it has to be staccato all the time, but you know, that's where we can have bounce. You know, if I was just playing, or if I was talking in a very legato way and putting all my words together like that, yeah, there wouldn't be that much bounce. You know, if someone's got a kind of voice that you like dancing to, it's because they've got a good rhythm in that voice, because they've got good variations and short and long notes. And alternatively, you know, I'm coming to that D quite nice and early in the bar. If I was going and playing on the beat, it's a slightly different feel again. It's not like one is right and one is wrong, one is left, one is more or less African sounding. It's just a slightly different feel. And that's something you can use as variations, little subtle things like that. Because it's great to have little variations that make it interesting without making it too radically different, where you're going to throw off other members of the band. Another great way to vary it is inverting the octaves. So what I mean that is just go have a high F. That's all I'm changing. And then then you've got a bit of contrast when you're playing it low sometimes and up and high the other times. Yeah, it can be that simple. You know, you might listen to a bass line, it sounds like doing all these complicated variations, but just that subtle change which keeps in the exact same rhythm. I know I am varying the rhythm slightly. Okay, does the vocal mic need to come up? Is that right? Okay, let me know if that's better. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, just stop me if any volumes change or you can't hear me, just stop me. And just like we changed that low F to go up high, we can change any of the other roots of those chords would sound good. So I'm just changing the B flat and going down, and then playing an octave thing. I'm going to slow that down. So it's just doing the same thing on the F, and then we go to a low B flat. Or we could do a mixture of the low and high B flat. Low, high, high. low, high, high, and then we go, oops, wrong note. What I'm doing on that time, I'm just playing G, C, G, C, 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 B flat, and I've got the low B flat again. You don't necessarily have to stick to the notes I'm using. Just have a rhythm that fits, that's similar to what I'm doing, or fits with it. The beauty is that there's so many different ways that you can play over a chord progression. Let's go. Okay, still a bit quiet on the voice. I think I'll just bring that mic a bit closer. 2, 2, 2, 2. Maybe it's the. Hopefully that's better. What I quite like doing is changing chord. Instead of 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, F, B flat, C, B flat. If I imagine myself changing the chord on the bass on just before the beat, I know we've not got a guitar playing to hear the kind of contrast against, but there's a nice feeling when you change chord slightly before the other instrument and kind of make the sound of leading them to it, because it doesn't go outside the harmony, because it resolves very instantly. You can always have notes that are outside the chord. That's fine. You build that tension, and when you release, that's when the ears, no matter what kind of musical experience or skill level people have got, people's ears respond to what sounds nice and what sounds doesn't, and what sounds create tension and what sounds don't. I think it's also kind of how we're trained from watching films and the music that goes along with the film, and we know that a scary or bad thing is about to happen because the scary and bad music that we associate with a scary and bad event is playing, and that sound builds tension. So I'm just going to change da 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 da. So 1, 2, 1, 2, and then coming before the bar. Slow that down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So you hear I'm going to that C just before, and I'm even doing a kind of triplet thing. That's another way we can vary the rhythm. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and splitting the bar into sixteenths, we can split it into triplets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. It's a bit difficult trying to play in straight sixteenths and sing triplets at the same time, but that's something I could work on. But so that would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you can use that. If I play the first half of the bar straight and the next bar in triplet time, then you can hear, that's a very obviously pronounced, over-exaggerated way of doing it. But to practice that, you could just play for the whole thing in triplets. might make it sound like 12/8 style, like Chimarenga from Zimbabwe or something like that. But if you just practice that, playing triplets over a straight beat, then when you want to put it in for half a bar, that's ready to you because you've practiced it. Oops. And you could even play it over the first half of the bar and then straight over the second half. So like this. So once you start with something which is just root notes over 3 chords, once you've got a rhythm like that, there are actually so many possibilities of where we can take it. We can play those triplets, we can play those passing notes, chord tones, we can invert the octave, we can start, we don't have to start on the root notes. We could start some of those on the third. So I'm just playing the third over the C, so starting on that E. Okay, back to F. What sometimes sounds good when you are starting on a note that isn't the root is kind of going home, taking the harmony home to the roots afterwards. Because if I just played that E, E to B flat is, that's the demonic interval, isn't it? The devil's, which doesn't sound so bad today, but that's the void note. But if you play, if you put that C in there, you're just bringing the harmony back. One thing you can do is pedal notes. Once you've learned musical rules and you've learned how, the simple way of making things sound good, that's when you can start to break that and experiment. And we have the notes, over in C major we have notes C, E and G. So F is the 4th of C major. You wouldn't find it in that chord, but you could still pedal an F note. It's gonna build a bit of tension. Dun, 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 dun. And then the drummer gives the roll, and you release. You could do the same thing. Probably more common to pedal the 5, pedal the 5th chord. I know we haven't got the other chords going underneath, and then that always comes on a drum fill, because then a drummer will always often finish a fill with a crash cymbal or ride cymbal on the 1 often. So it doesn't matter how crazy, we could, even do something so far out of the harmony, everyone's going to be saying, oh my god, what's the person doing? My ears can't take this. Oh, everything's crazy. Oh, tension. Oh, what's going on? And it's resolved. And it's like, whatever that was is gone. It's in the past. That's, we've now got a new sound, and you can use that. I mean, that's quite a radical example, playing. Yeah, you wouldn't. But it's still, it's still going to resolve when you go back to the home key. And if you've got a drummer who's really listening and used to playing with musicians, you can kind of encourage them and draw a drum fill out of them. If you're playing something that maybe you've gone up to some kind of variation, you wanted to do something a bit higher, melodic. You would give them, if they're not looking and they're not responding, and you're kind of like, oh my god, I want to move back. If you just move back on your own, it's not going to sound as good if you go with them. So you wait. You could just kind of give it some slides, pedaling that, and they're just going to eventually gung, 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 with a drum fill. Can you hear kind of how contrasting that is, having that low E string when we've not been playing that for a couple minutes? That then starts to sound interesting.
Crazy man?
No, the young guy that was with the black hair.
And little slides we can always do as well, kind of little ornaments. When you're in the major scale, there are, I don't think I can count and play at the same time, but there's at least 4 intervals where you've got a perfect second. You've got F to G, G to A, B flat to C, C to D, and D to E. So you got 5. So I kind of find there are 2 ways to do these 2 fret slides. And either you want to land on beat 1 on the note you're going for, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, or you start your slide on the beat and finish afterwards. 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. And what you wouldn't want to be doing is a riff that had, or a bass line that had that in too much. You want to have, it only sounds good if you're not doing it all the time. Or do a sort of double one like that. Variations are great if they're not overused. They're going to be more effective if they're not overused. Oops, wrong one. And any variations I'm doing, unless I was going for some radical tension note, there are only 7 possible notes that I'm choosing from. So as long as I've got something that fits in that rhythm, then experiment. I might find something that I don't like the sound of, but that's fine. If you play something once and it doesn't sound good, you just don't play it again. You play something else. No one in the crowd will probably notice apart from you. Cool. Has anyone got any questions about that so far? Either pop it in the chat or you can unmute yourself if there's a question at all. I'm a little bit far away from the chat, but I'll lean in and find this. Anything at all, guys? Because usually what happens is the questions all come at the end at the same time when we're out of time, and then don't get a chance to answer them all often. But if you've not got any questions, that is absolutely fine. Oh, that's something there. What does that say? Sounds amazing is important. Yeah, so the question is about landing on beat one and landing on the strong beats after fills. You always want to be somewhere where you can see the drummer, because not every drummer is going to land on beat one. They don't always need to. But low notes. If you did a fill, and landing up there would sound very different to it. It's like with a low note. A low note always has a lot of strong depth and more emphasis, and imagining that if it was Congolese music like Soukous and you've got gat, gat, da, gat, 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 you've always got that kick on the beat, 4 to the floor. So the bass drum is a low frequency, the bass guitar is a low frequency, but obviously the lower down the neck, or at least being on the E string, is going to be where you get the more depth and weight of your sound, especially as I know some people have super special handmade expensive Federa basses or whatever. This might be different for you, but what I find, if I was going to play a note like this B flat on the G string, or play the same note on the D string, it sounds to me it's got more depth, it's thicker here and richer tone here, probably more again there. It doesn't mean you shouldn't play the B flat there. We should be playing all over the bass. But when you want to emphasize a downbeat, the lower on the lower E string, it's going to catch more and it's going to be thicker. So let me just read the question again and check that is what it. Right, there's quite a few questions now. Let's just go back through that. Sorry, I'm a little bit far. I've got all these cameras set up, and it means that I've got to put the laptop screen quite far away. Yeah, so I mean, you could phrase a fill off over the line, over the bar line, but just make sure it fits with the drummer, because that's the name of the game, and that's how you make people dance and enjoy the music. If it's synchronizing and if it's working rhythmically and harmonically together. Okay, hey Ed, are you working? I wonder if you are working within more than one shape. Good question. I always think about the bass as one finger per fret. I guess the way we evolved to have 4 fingers was so we could play bass. So, if you were playing like we were in F, if you've got your middle finger on the root, you're always going to have space there to get to the major third, to get to fifth there, and you do not have to move your wrist position to use any of those notes. So when you've got a bass line and okay, so I'm you see, if I'm going down, I'm moving my hand position. But if I'm not going down to that B flat, then I don't need to move. So it's like you just want to make it, it's not like you need to make it easy for yourself, but you don't need to make it difficult for yourself. And the way to do that is, if you've got all the notes within reach, then you can keep your hand position there. I might alternatively, if I'm playing in F, you just got to be somewhere where you've got a comfortable F that you can reach. I might put that F here, and I might play something like and that'd be perfect if I needed that low F but with a bit more thickness and depth, and I wanted to be getting up to here, because if I've got my F there, I can comfortably reach, as we might all have different size hands, but I can reach C there, and within those notes, wherever you are on the neck, you've got all of the resources you need to make a great bass line, because you've got every single note of the scale there. I probably wouldn't, if I was in F, I probably wouldn't have a bass line between those two. I would either have that F, or be somewhere around there. I probably wouldn't be centered around this G, because there wouldn't be as much need for it. I wouldn't have I could have something like doesn't really, confuses me. It feels like you want to have a nice key center, and build the shape around that. Hope that answers the question. Let's see again. I'm a bass player. Sounds amazing. So good. Okay, how do you do some breaks with the drummer? You're never gonna, well, no, not never, but often you're not gonna know what the drummer's drum feel is gonna be. The more you get to know a drummer and the more you get to know a style, you might be able to intuitively anticipate the rhythms that they play, and you kind of understand the way they do their fills, and that's just done by not really consciously analysing them, but just listening and spending time working with them, and listening to where in the bar they start their fills, where they often end them, because every drummer is going to have kind of, whether they know about it or not, they're going to have signature kind of, it's like, let's say when you're doing a solo, maybe you like playing this bluesy fifth note, the flat fifth, and that's the kind of something you learn, and you often like putting that in. A drummer is going to have alternatively certain kind of drum licks that they've just gravitated towards because it's what they like and what fits with their body and their instrument and everything. So just the more and more you get used to them, get used to playing with them, you'll pick some of those up. But really, as long as you're finishing on the same beat with strength, the rest doesn't really matter. Just know that, okay, they've started the fill. An easy fill is just a kind of playing the scale down. So something like that in any kind of rhythm. You wouldn't want to play the whole scale like that, because it's going to sound a bit like an exercise. But if you're playing F, B flat, some kind of C, scale going down. It might be a, it's the good thing about these when you're playing a rundown, you can start from anywhere, and as long as you know what note you're going to finish on. If you start too early, and let's say I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and then I've gone down too far, you just come back up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just you've got, oh no, I've already landed on the note E below the F. I'll just come back up and land on the F. So it doesn't matter where you start, as long as you know where you finish. If you go beyond that note, you just come back, or play another couple notes and then come back. Okay, are there only major chords in the progressions? No, there are often. This is a. Although I was playing fingerstyle, and traditionally in Congo people would play with the thumb, which is something we'll look at shortly as well. There are a lot of, especially in Central Africa and in the countries where the national music styles, like in Congo, the Soukous and the Sebene, that traditionally has a lot of 1-4-5-4, 1-5-4-5, 1-4-1-5, or just 5-4 major chord progressions, and that has influenced a lot of music. The Makossa of Cameroon, the Coupé de Calais of Ivory Coast, the Sungura of Zimbabwe, it all took a lot of influence there because Congo had the first radio station in Africa. The first ever song recorded in Africa was in Congo, and the first guitars that arrived in Congo came from Europe, and it was a guy called Mr. Bill. I think it was Bill Alexander. Oh, there's definitely a Bill in his name. And he was one of the first people who brought guitars and was teaching local Congolese music. And he was a guitar player who had played with, he was on the same kind of circuit as Django Reinhardt during the Second World War, I guess. Second World War. And he taught Wendo Colosoi, who recorded the first ever song in Africa, Marie-Louise, in 1948, maybe, something like that. He taught him guitar, and he gave him the classic three chords. I don't know if it was C, F, and G, or G, C, and D, whatever it was. It was the root of a lot of Congolese music. And so the Congolese rumba, which became the soukous, which influenced all these other countries, originally began with just these simple major chord progressions, and that's why a lot of African styles. There are lots of completely different African styles that aren't related to that at all, because there's totally different mixes of ethnicities in Africa. So the Central African people talk about like the Congolese tribes. There's 450 tribes, and many of them have the Bantu is the origin of the people. So, and these Bantu people spread from Congo. I don't know how long ago this is. They came from somewhere around the Congo Basin and would have gone to Cameroon, would have gone down to South Africa, migrating over years and years. So there are similarities in languages with tribes who in totally different parts of Africa but had origins in the same place, and maybe that's a reason why this Congolese music has been adopted in so many different countries, because maybe there was a natural understanding of the rhythms and melodies that came from being a long distant genetic cousin, or ethnicity cousin. something like that. But yeah, there are people that go wild and put a minor chord in there. Traditionally, like for years. I mean, it's not just with Congolese musicians, but with lots of different African bands. When we'd have a song that had 4 chords in it, and they couldn't remember the name of it, they'd say, "Oh, let's play that one, the jazz song." And I'd be thinking, well, that's not jazz. To me, jazz is very different. But for them, it was like, oh well, it's got 4 chords and one of them's got a 7th. Whoa, that's jazz. Because the traditional style they would have grown up playing would just had the 3 major chords. Okay. Do you generally stay in the upper octaves? Do you generally stay in the upper octaves, or do you use the same devices melodically? Yeah, so this style of bass line, the Congolese style, is called marche militaire. I think that's the right pronunciation, and it comes from a guy who, a bass player who got influenced by the traditional percussion drums in the villages of Congo. And in percussion groups, you're always going to have big drums, small drums, medium drums, and they have low, high, medium tones, and so when they play let's play. So he kind of invented this bass style that's going very much over the 4 strings and the 4 frequency ranges. And what traditionally they would do also, they would use a thumb on their left hand. And kind of, instead of playing a nice clean tone on that low string, they would kind of mute it a bit like that, so it's got more of a short, dead tone. And they wanted to make it sound a bit like a kick drum as well. It limits you a bit because you can't. It's harder to get to certain notes, but certain bass lines. It just sort of really fits. Question here from Misha Marks, the legendary solo bass player that you might have seen with the channel Mission Bass. He's saying, how do you Africanize a bass line from another genre? Good question. You just change the rhythm, because like there's a band I run called the London Astrobeat Orchestra. Obviously not playing much at the moment, but we took I got a call from a venue in London called the Jazz Cafe, and they said that a West African tribute to Talking Heads would sell really well and sound really good. So I just started listening to the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense film and rearranging the whole set into an African style. And we would keep the chord progressions, we would keep the vocals, we would change the drum beats, the bass lines, the rhythms to Congolese, Malian, Senegalese grooves, basically, or zouk as well. But yeah, I mean, Misha, you've got the rocker's beard, so I'm guessing you're going to know this bass line. Let's see if I even know it. Something like that, isn't it? That Fleetwood Mac bass line. Break the chains. And you could even change that into so what's the tempo? You could even you could change anything to an African rhythm, or even like a salsa. video that you find on YouTube where I've taken a few, like, I'm sure you all know that one, classic, and that's a straight rhythm in playing 16th notes, but you could change that into an African 12/8. Just the same notes. You could imagine drums. Something like that. And then you would... then I got another one. What was it? The first wedding song, bass line, function gig tune. Most bass players know, great for the dexterity as well. Billie Jean. If you just vary the rhythm. We're just making it syncopated. We're changing which 16th, before that's straight eighths. We're just playing quavers, but we want to get in that. Maybe that's the answer to the question, is you want semi-quavers, not quavers. You can have quavers, but a mixture of quavers and semi-quavers. So just varying the rhythm, semi-quavers, syncopations, different kind of notes. Okay. Are there any rules on fingering? I would say just the right hand. I don't play very hard. If you play hard, you're going to make your hand tired. You're going to be overworking those muscles when you don't need to be. And if you're switching on more muscles than you need to, then the signal from your brain to your fingers is going to be slower, because there's more, it's got to travel through more contracted, switched on muscle, and there are other signals flying around that you don't need. So just keeping the hand relaxed and not using any muscles beyond what's necessary for the movement, so not switching on anything else. When I could see myself in that camera, I can see I guess I may have got 20 years worth of bass player's shoulder. I'm not completely relaxed up here, but with my right hand I'm really isolating which muscles I need. With the left hand, if you're doing exercises which are one finger per fret, your hand shouldn't be coming at this kind of angle. You should be perpendicular, so like straight on. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly so, but that looks relaxed because my fingers have got plenty of space to reach all the way. I've hardly got a, you can see very slightly in my forearm here. You might just, as I move up the neck, I slightly move that, but really not much. And I think that was the question. Any rules on fingering? So just keep both hands relaxed, and although it sounds quite difficult to think how how to stop doing this, but just you've got to only send the signals from the brain to the muscles that you need to do the movement, and that's maybe just by thinking very carefully about what you need. So and that's in any aspect of life. If you were going to get your mobile phone out of your pocket, let's say it was my left pocket, I would need to switch on my shoulder, my elbow, put my hand in and get the pocket or get the phone out. What I don't need is to, I don't need to switch on my whole body and use unnecessary, it's obviously just a strange example, but you don't need to use muscles which are unnecessary for that movement, because if you are, you're just slowing yourself down, you're wasting energy. And if you're going to be playing these Congolese grooves for 5 hours long in a nightclub, you only really want to use the muscles you need and play the notes that you need. Otherwise, you're gonna not have the stamina. How do you move to different chords? Do you move to different chords around? Okay. The question is, how do you move to different chords on minor, like in a North African Morocco thing? A lot of Moroccan stuff, they've got a cool 12/8 rhythms. What you'll quite commonly find in North Africa, especially Morocco, is they'll be, when they're in what might sound like a minor key, they're playing a pentatonic. Let's say the A minor pentatonic, so the notes A, C, D, E, G, and A. Okay, but instead of using that, which is like the first pentatonic that I learned, they would use that same scale but centered around the D. So, and that then starts to sound really interesting, because once your root and kind of home center of the key is D, there isn't a minor third, there isn't a major third. We've only got the second. So we can't tell if that's minor or major. So they've got a kind of and that's our kind of home sound. Yeah, they've got these great, really kind of piercing wooden percussion sort of shakers that they use. So once we've established that D as our home sound, we can go to that E, build a bit of tension, and we know that we can't last forever there, because we got to resolve that D. Yeah, and the Moroccan, obviously the bass guitar is not a traditional instrument to many places, and the way that it's played is obviously adapted from local percussion, stringed instruments. In Morocco they have the sintir, also called the gimbri, which is 3 strings, basically 3 strings traditional African bass. Yeah, you've got a lot of these 3-stringed instruments in Mali, the Ngoni, in Senegal, the Khalam from the kind of Wolof culture, or the Kontin for the Jola people, which is all, it's a very similar instrument. But you kind of, what's great about that is because it's a bass instrument, but it's very much the forefront, so they can have concerts where it's just one gimbri player, so one traditional Moroccan bass player and 4 singers, and they play these, and they obviously don't know the words or the language. These kind of these ornaments that come from the Arabic instruments and the ouds, and the bass just kind of accompanies and plays the melodies. Yeah, cool, and hope that helps. don't know a lot about Moroccan music, but that's just a little taster. Okay, Moroccan rhythm. Yeah, hopefully that helps as well. Nice bass, nice sound. Do you play flats? Do I play flats? No. A lot of people ask me that. Perhaps this bass just has that kind of tone, but I basically got the cheapest strings that the shop sells, which is like £15, £15 for a set of Diario strings, standard gauge, and I changed them every 5 or 6 years, and just the kind of dead, flat, dull kind of sounding, and I always keep the treble very much rolled off, and that's basically the sound that when I got this bass when I was 13, the band that I was playing with, they were all sort of twice my age, and they played with my amp, and then I just basically kept to those settings for the next 20 years. So there's no great secret to it. It's just cheap strings, no treble, and leave your strings on as long as possible. And whenever people ask me about gear and equipment, I pretty much don't know anything because I've had the same bass for 20 years. So I've never needed. When I was about 18, I was thinking, oh yeah, if I want to be the world's greatest famous musician, I need to at least be playing a £1,000 bass. So I tried all these basses, and I just thought, oh, actually, I much prefer this one, which was 350, I think it was. I was thinking, wow, it just fits my sound, my hands. So I've got not a lot of info about that. When you started learning these African bass rhythms, what are certain things you practiced daily that improved your bass playing understanding? When I started this stuff, I was just given, so I was working with a band from Zimbabwe, and they were all professional musicians in their 30s, I guess, and the guitar player just gave me the bass riffs, taught them to me. Things like so this is G, C. Actually, why don't we do this one together? So I'm just going G, G, B. Let's get that. G, G, B, G, G, B, G, G, B, G, G, B. And then the next part is playing a low C, a high C, and back to the G. Low, high, G. So low C, high C, G. So put those two together. G, G, B, C, C, G, 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 B. Can't sing a low C, but C, C, B, G, 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 B, C, C, B. So, and then, just like in that first bass line example that we did, we just completely mirror that rhythm, and we just change the chord tones. So we go A, A, D, because we're playing D major, we're playing the 5th, then the root, A, A, D, A, A, D, on the 12th fret. Probably do it fingering like that. A, A, D, and then back to C, C, G. So it's got that exactly symmetrical rhythm. So they would teach me riffs like that. Let's take it a bit quicker. And I'd learn that riff. At the time, I didn't actually know what those chords were, and I didn't know the scales that would have gone along with it. But what I did, I just learned the riffs and I internalized all those riffs. And it was quite a while before I was able to do any kind of variations. I would just play this for, for as long as they told me, because I hadn't really developed the creativity, I hadn't developed the theory or understanding to be able to vary it, because I didn't know what notes to vary it to. And that's why that's something I always focus on these lessons, is there are actually relatively simple formulas that you can use to jazz up these bass lines and make them more interesting. And it just comes from either keeping the rhythm the same or varying the rhythm and adding in passing notes, chord tones, inverting the octaves or the slides, pedal notes. But I played that probably for a few years before I knew what else to, before I kind of understood what to do. But it just meant that practice of repeating something, you internalize it, and it might take a little while before you're ready to put your own spin on it, and that's fine. You just really soak it in, because when you learn that, at first you're going to be thinking about it. While you're playing it, you're going to be thinking about how to play it, but you want to get to the stage where it's your subconscious that takes over, because your conscious brain has learned these riffs and has learned the muscle memory, learned the finger positions, and so eventually it's just you can do it without thinking. And then once you can do it without thinking, then you can start thinking about the variations that could go in there. Once you're already stuck on, you're locked on that rhythm, we could just invert the octave on that G. Actually, I don't think that sounds quite right. I'd say, the notes, they're not wrong notes, but it doesn't flow. If we had that, if I was going to play that G there, maybe I would play a high G and then the low G. I think it just sounded like too much of an interval going from that high G to the B. Although obviously the high G to the low G is a further interval, but who knows why, it just feels better. So if you had this bass line, like I said, you can use all these same principles. Maybe you can try them yourselves now. Little slide. Doesn't quite fit the way I was imagining it, but then I can just find something else. Or I could, there's so much space there. Just slightly change the rhythm. It's still kind of plodding along nicely. So what I'm doing there is playing the 1, 3, 5, and doesn't quite sound that cool to me. It sounds playing that. I don't know the right word for it, but it just sounds a little bit dull. It kind of needs something a bit more interesting. Sometimes when you want to vary it, thinking, okay, which notes should I add to the variate? It might just be the same note that you need. Maybe that's the one you need. Just that root, or that fifth there. I could change the position in the neck where I'm playing that, and just naturally I'll choose slightly different notes because I'll be in a different position. I'll be inspired by other notes. And also, key thing, if we are going to do this, if you're going to make a radical change in your bass line, you've got to wait for that drum roll, or you've got to encourage that drum roll to happen. See, I like that, but I don't like that D. I feel like it's kind of, what I'm hearing in my head is there can be a bit of more of a kind of melodic direction to that, but that D note is killing it. Yeah, so instead of that D, I just need to play the F sharp, the third over that. Hear that kind of line running through it. If I something like that, yeah, that's great. There's obviously no low frequencies in there, but you know, we just wait for that drum roll. Can still do that triplet feel. Yeah, something like that. Hopefully, a bit waylaid there, but hopefully that answered the question. Cool. Does the Soukous rhythm, I think you probably mean Soukous, does the Soukous rhythm always play in 4/4? So the Soukous rhythm, there are kind of two two types. The original, so that's the kick. The original is the kavasha, which goes da 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 da, and then what some people might call Soukous, some people might call it Sebene, which is a slight variation on that, which goes 2, 3, 4 da 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 da. But yeah, it will always be in 4/4. There is a variation where you can have that just like we did, where we changed the straight 16ths to the, they could do a kind of a 6/8 or a 12/8 variation. So that's in 4/4. But this, that might come under the term folklore, which is more of a kind of traditional village rhythm from Congo, which it seems to me that a lot of 12/8 rhythms which are different, they just kind of seems like people put them under the umbrella of folklore, and there's a few different ways of doing that. Okay, what would be the best practice routine to improve your rhythm? I think, being able to, one thing is you've always got to be able to tap your foot on the beat while you're playing. Any time when I've seen bass players who are struggling to get the rhythm with their hands, they are often out of sync with their foot. They might be tapping on the first beat of the bar, but then they're tapping on the 2.5 and the 3.5, whatever. So then it means that they actually change their bass playing to fit their foot, and the foot is like the internal rhythm meter. So the way to improve that is be extremely conscious of your foot tapping, and always make sure you have your foot tapping when you're practicing. Have the metronome on, because if you've not got the metronome on, then you don't know if you're going out of time and you're locking into your foot rather than your foot locking in with the rest of your body. So if you've got that metronome on, whatever tempo it is, I quite like. I've not got one on I don't have a metronome on my phone, but what I love is playing at 40 beats per minute. So you're like, I did this when I was about 21. I did this for a whole year. So you've got the metronome at this kind of tempo, and if you're clapping to it or you're playing the bass, when you hit that exactly on the beat, you'll find that you can't really hear it. You can't, because the frequency of your clap, your note will slightly mask it. When you're exactly on it, it's going to sound a bit different. So once you see, obviously I've not got an actual metronome here, but just by playing dong, dong, on that very slowly, as simple as this might sound, it is difficult to land exactly on that metronome beat. And then, once you're locking on that, play 2 notes over the same, that metronome would stay on 40 beats per minute, and then play triplets, maybe do a scale, and then semiquavers, 4 notes, and then you want to do 5s, which is really hard, because 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, it's really hard to count. I use Tadikina Tom, which is like the South Indian conical counting style that tabla players use. So Tadikina Tom, Tadikina Tom, Tadikina Tom, Tadikina, and trying to see if you can actually evenly divide that one beat by 5. It's pretty difficult, but once if you're doing it a lot, you get into the hang of it, and then do 6s and then do 7s, and being able to lock very tightly like that on the tempo is obviously just very good for your playing. But then when it comes to feeling and understanding rhythms, you'll always be able to play on which part of the bar that you want. And so then when you are, if you could, you've got your foot tapping, if you could play, let's say, that first riff we did in F, do this with me. F, F, A, B flat, C, G, B flat. Now, I can obviously do this because I practiced this and got it to a stage where I can talk quite fluently over this riff, which a lot of people find difficult. But the first thing to do is just can you count 1, 2, 3, 4? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're doing that with a metronome, so if you go out 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do it with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then really discipline yourself like that, and then try and count off the beats as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Let's see, I've changed my pace playing now to go to the offbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Oh, I've confused myself now, but you get the point. You count on the beat, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If you can get that polyrhythm thing going, then you're just going to be able to feel and play and absorb any of these really without having a barrier to it, and just by listening and maybe when you're playing, have some kind of movement in your body. Maybe instead of just tapping one foot, tap left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Just another way of internalizing that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because if you can feel it and play it at the same time, then that'll drastically improve the rhythm. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, what is next? Yeah, lots of African rhythms on Talking Heads. Actually, although it was my kind of income for a couple of years, I tell you the truth, when the Jazz Cafe called me and said, "Can I put together a West African recreation of Talking Heads?" I didn't really know Talking Heads very well at all. When I started researching them, I realised I knew a lot more tunes than I realised. But I just completely bullshitted them over the phone, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's my favourite band." And I was like, "Oh, what's your favourite song?" And then they say that. I say, "Oh, that's my favourite song as well." And they were like, "Oh, really? Okay." So they gave me the gig, and I was on the way to the airport, heading to Brazil for a couple of months, and they just put the tickets on sale at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't have a band name. They just put the thing on sale, and by 3 p.m. it sold out, and that's a 500 capacity venue. And they called me, said, "Look, it's sold out in 5 hours. Can you do these 4 other gigs?" And I had to kind of pretend to them that I was calling my band to check if they were available, but in actual reality, I didn't even have a band yet. I hadn't even started listening to the music, and we'd sold out 5 nights, and I was thinking, I was there in the middle of Brazil, thinking, shit, I got to start working on these tunes, and I put together a band with guitarists from Congo and Cameroon, kora player from Guinea, drummer and percussion from Senegal, and myself on bass. Arranged all of the tunes, sent arrangements and stuff to all of the guys, in classic fashion. None of them learned or listened to any of the songs, and we literally had 5 days of solid rehearsals every day before going on stage to do 5 sold out shows. It was a bit of a mad, I do it differently now, knowing what I learned about. But anyway, I had to sack half of the guys, but we've now, if you see any stuff on YouTube now with the London Astrobeat Orchestra, we do the because it was the 50th anniversary of Abbey Road 2.5 years ago. I rearranged that then in kind of a Malian, Congolese, Senegalese fashion again, and that seemed to work quite well. Yeah, Angelique Kidjo stole our idea at the exact same. She was doing it at the exact same time as we were, strangely, but we were selling out the Jazz Cafe. She was selling out Carnegie Hall, so I guess she won that one. Oh, cool. There's quite a few questions, so I'm not going to be able to check them all. I'm just going to skim through. So what we will look at though a bit is the thumb technique that I guess Victor Wooten does this cool up and down thing that they do in flamenco as well. They call it alpathia or something like that. In Congo they never do upstrokes with the thumb, it's always down. So playing with the thumb, it took me quite a while because I've spent so many years playing fingerstyle. To get a good tone out of it, you've got to be relaxed. You've got to be playing with a good sort of meaty, thick bit of your thumb and striking through the note. And then, let's say we're in A major, be practicing the scales. However it is that you like to practice them, just so you're doing stuff with your left hand which you don't have to think about, but just with your right hand you can be conscious on that. And what they do, they would use which camera is it? It's this one, isn't it? Use the forefinger. You wouldn't use the middle finger. Only guys who are there's a guy called Lafombo who's one of the best known Congolese bass players, but he's more of like a kind of virtuoso, and he's got these radical techniques. So he would use the thumb and both of these fingers, but most people would just stick to one, and it's the way I do it as well. You would have a downstroke with let's do it on the E string, downstroke with the thumb, and you can have an upstroke with the finger. So you could go like this. I should sort of relax my hand more like that. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So just get used to doing that. Yeah, actually, I just saw a comment about Akithi Kumalo. So It was actually yesterday. So Misha Marks put me in touch with him because, you know, one thing I want to do is find out about, how many of you guys would be interested in doing, weekly or monthly sessions and a whole program. And I was talking to him about whether he'd be interested in being involved, because I guess we're probably building the ideal community of bass players who are interested in different African styles. And I'm sure you all would love to see a masterclass by Bakithi. And if you don't know who he is the South African bass player who played on Paul Simon's Graceland album. So that's that classic, and then it's got that strange kind of lick that sounds like it's recorded and played backwards in the middle, or some of you guys probably know. What was it? Yeah, that's it. But let's just go back to the thumb for now. So just downstrokes, upstrokes, and then we can build that into a rhythm. So I'm going to go down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. I'll tell you what, let's go back to that riff we did in F, seeing as you already know that. So we're going to go down, down, up, down on F. Down, down, up, down. Down, down, up, down. Down, down, up, down. And then then I'm playing a thumb stroke on the A. When you get to the B flat, play with your finger or play with your thumb, whatever is most comfortable. The important thing is actually, play with the thumb. It's good to play with the thumb on the downbeats of the bar, because it's a bit of the thicker tone, and that's when the kick drum is hitting. So you want to emphasize, if you've got that depth at the same time as the kick drum, that's always going to sound good. So, but where the thumb and this right hand technique really comes into its own, if we're playing something like this, it's got a lot of space. It's not that sort of radically important to be using that technique. But if we're playing that marche militaire stuff where we're crossing all the strings, if you just look at the right hand camera, you can see how easily I can cross all those strings with look at the wrist and look how relaxed that looks, because you can see, if I was playing with the fingers, you've got all this kind of jumping between the strings, but like that, my right hand, the thumb and the finger, they're always in the right position. They're just, your fingers just naturally land there. What I've been developing the lockdown, because obviously there's no drummer and bass players, there's no drummer and guitarist to play with, been playing these ghost notes, these muted notes in there as well. So that by a ghost note, what I mean is a note that we're not fretting. It's just got that dead sound. You know, I don't know how this is going to sound when I'm actually playing with the drums, because that tone, that frequency range is very much hi-hat. So it's kind of like, I was playing something. Trying to emulate the boogaloo percussion instruments of southern Senegal. So just by having sort of, the muted hi-hat tones in there, the low notes, which I could be like my kick drum, and then doing little sort of 2-note chords, or something like, which would be like your guitar. So it's just a way I could kind of stop myself from going crazy bored, just trying to, have a band to play with, but by putting it on the bass. Yeah, maybe we can teach that sometime. That obviously needs a bit of probably transcribing and writing down to make it a bit simpler to understand. Yeah, exactly. Bakithi he does a lot of that slap bass style. My bass, it just, don't know, it never kind of. Yeah, I used to play a lot of slap when I was like 16, and then I thought I was the coolest person in the world, and then I don't know what happened, but I just got into other kinds of music, and just really hardly did it since then. So I've not really, I've not developed that style since then. And I guess in South African music, you've got very much the gospel influence and the jazzy influence as well, and the tone of a lot. My bass is quite a dull, dead sound. Like people were asking me about flat wound strings because it's got that smooth, dead, dull tone. That I don't think would cut through if I was playing slap with, if it's Congolese stuff where there's 2 or 3 guitars in there at the same time. Just wouldn't really get through the frequency range and work. So that's why I don't do it, or maybe I just can't be bothered to do enough practice to get my slap chops back up to the game. Oh wow! So we've done 1 hour and 40 minutes. That's no idea what the time was. Yeah. So guys, what we'd like to do is have very much a monthly program. So we would have teachers like myself doing weekly sessions, and then guest tutors, hopefully. He sounded quite receptive on the phone, but hopefully people like Bakithi Kumalo giving a South African bass masterclass. What I'm experimenting with at the moment as well is there are certain different types of software for reducing the latency for live online jamming. I've not got it completely sorted yet, but what we're going to look at doing is, if we were doing these monthly long or yearly long African-based programs, what would be really useful, I think, and hopefully you'd agree as well, and you can let me know, is by giving you guitarists and drummers to jam with. So if we had, when we get the latency down, we could have a Zoom call where we have two of the tutors on the World Music Method site who play guitar and drums, and they could be jamming together at a reduced enough latency that you would then be able to jam along with your bass to it, and we could teach you some specific bass lines, and basically they could play for an hour long or something like that every week, and it would be a great, non-stop, and it'd be maybe a great session for you just to practice these bass lines for a solid hour with the live drummer, and and rather than me just doing the sort of doing these and humming the drums, you'd actually have, one of the best drummers I know, Felix Ngindu, playing that, and so you'd actually have the experience of jamming. I mean, at the moment, we could certainly make it happen perfectly audio-wise if it was just the one instrument. So if it's drums, you could all play to that at home, no problem. Working on getting the guitar involved as well, because I guess that would take it to a new level that would be really interesting. And then you've got the melodic patterns that you can play with as well. So what would be really handy to know is what times people, when we're doing live sessions, what times of the day people are able to access this stuff and get the most out of it live. Because the Total Immersion World Music Guitar course we're doing at the moment, we've got 100 people signed up for the 10-day course, and about a quarter of them are accessing the live stuff at 4 p.m. every day. And maybe a quarter of the group is actually quite successful in live realms of getting people together. But obviously we want to be programming stuff at the best times for people to join. So perhaps maybe you could let me know in the comments if starting at 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. I mean, I'm relating this to London time, so this might be obviously very different to depending on where you are, but so it could be accessible for people in North America as well. 4 p.m., 6 p.m., 8 p.m. Stuff like that would just be really handy to know if that's valid, or if you prefer to watch this stuff on on demand, as in sort of playbacks, watching it on the playback like you would a replay like the other stuff in the course. So yeah, I'm just gonna maybe say hang around here until about 6 o'clock, and it'd be great to hear from you guys. If there's tell me what you're struggling with and what we could teach you, and because there might be great ideas that you could inspire me with, which we've not thought of. So let's just read through these comments. Cool. Yeah, and also, would you like to be doing stuff like Cuban bass and Brazilian bass and things like that as well? And we could also, we could do things like the occasional more academic lessons, like music history lessons or genre history lessons, where people of all instruments could enjoy and really get the background and understand. Or also, if anyone's got any bass grooves that they want a bit of feedback on, you're welcome to unmute and play it over the internet, and we can all check it out. Cool. Yeah, thumb technique. I guess that's the thing. A lot of people, because it's new, it's new to a lot of people. That's something we could be working regularly on. Great. Cool. Yeah, for the gospel stuff, yeah, send me that. Yeah, you can always reach me on the info@worldmusicmethod.com email. That stuff will always find its way eventually to me. And the next bass course, I keep saying it's coming out next month, but then there's always so many other things that end up, taking the time, and the whole post-production of these courses takes a while. But we're doing the South African style, so I've been transcribing bits of Goma, Maskandi, Mkwanga, and gospel. And actually, it's the next comment, by Dennis Walasumbi. We've actually got a track in that course that he suggested to me a few months ago. Leka Smarky, it's probably the wrong pronunciation, but it's got a gospel tune. And so things like that, we can. I can look at and pull apart and transcribe certain songs or genres if there's demand for it. Then I'd be happy to do that, because it might be something that's new to me as well, that I can check out and enjoy learning from. Okay, playing by ear. Any tips? Yes, Walu. So to play by ear and to learn things by ear, it's obviously a great skill. We all have different natural ear abilities. Some people are born with perfect pitch. Some people think they're born tone deaf. I mean, I don't think that's really true for anyone. I could naturally learn riffs and remember them quite easily. I didn't have a naturally good ear. Luckily my mum did, so when I was a teenager, and I might have some function tunes, pop and rock tunes to learn, if there was like a bridge that goes to a different key, and I just I would try every of the 12 notes and could never figure out what it was. She could listen to it and figure it out and show me. But that's something that I developed just over time. And thing to think about really is that the bass is often a monotonous instrument. We often play one note at a time, so our ears develop completely differently to guitarists and piano players who have a completely different sense of harmony. So knowing how to construct chords on the piano or guitar, not having to play them with any sort of skill or ability level, but just knowing the sounds of them, the difference between the major and the minor, and doing the interval training. So at the very end of the African Bass Masterclass Part 2, there are some of those technique and ear training lessons where it's just all about learning the intervals, because if that's our C and that's our 1, then you've got to know your ears have got to recognize the distance between these two notes and these two notes and these two notes, and you just got to know the distance between. It's not unlimited possibilities, because there are only 11 notes in total. Is it 11 or? I was thinking 12, but no, 12 is obviously E again. No, right. Anyway, 12 notes. So you just got to know the difference and the space between all of them. And beginning to recognize them, and then you might just be hearing something walking down the street. You might hear a car alarm or something like that, and you think, oh yeah, that's a second. I recognize that sound because you've done enough. I know that doesn't really sound like a car alarm, bad example, but you've done that enough times. And if you're singing it, you could sing every note. It's not important about singing it perfectly and accurately. It's just getting the sound of that and internalizing it. And so if you could you just, the more and more you do that, you will recognize the sound of this note to that note, and it's that distance. And so then when you're listening to something and you're trying to figure it out, you'll find the first note, and then the next note is only going to be 1 fret away, 2 frets away, 3 frets away, 4 frets, or whatever. But once you've figured out and you just recognize that distance of space, that's all it is. That's all 2 notes are. It's just a difference. There's just a distance between them, and your ears can recognize that. So sing the notes and learn all of the intervals. And I think I think you've enrolled in that part 2 course. But at the very end of it, there is some basic technique and ear training stuff. Cool, yeah. Brazilian and Cuban bass. Cool. Yeah, I think that probably gets a few votes. Cool, yeah. Thanks, William. Thanks for coming along. Oh, cool. So Hans is playing bass on the guitar. Is that through a bass amp? Okay, cool. Yeah, sack the bass player if you can. If you can live without one. Cool, got some grooves there from PMZ, sending in some funky vibes. Thanks for that. Cool, yeah. So I mean, just you guys, if there are certain things you want to learn or questions you've got, if you're going through the course material as well, and there are lessons that you're stuck on or don't make any sense, then definitely here on email as well. Cool. We got Anderson in the house. How's it going, man? Nice. How are you getting on with these bass lines? So I'm not sure if you're trying to speak or if the audio is just cutting out. Ah, there you are.
Okay. Oh yes, I like the course.
Yeah.
Yes, and I really enjoying it, and the rhythms they're really nice. Yeah, just the technique and get the thumb and the 2 fingers working.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the struggle.
Yeah, yeah. We're not used to use the thumb and the 2 fingers together, only to make chords. but independently is kind of, tricky.
Yeah, I look a bit at some of the fingerstyle guitar players because a lot of them they're 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 doing a whole kind of thumb and three fingers like like Newell and Camilo. They have these great kind of classical techniques, and I think there's probably some similarity between that.
Yes, but I do play guitar as well with Brazilian music, and to play baião on the bass of the string and independent, but the guitar strings are much lighter, isn't it? So, and to get on the other strings in the bass guitar is a little bit more of power in the thumb, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. What about the Senegalese rhythms? How are you finding those?
Uh, I do like. I think always what I think about. I think like Brazilian music and African music. I have kind of idea. You have to learn how to dance it to feel in your body for you to be able to assimilate the rhythm much easier. And I think like that to get to the bass line, you have to be able to move to the music a little bit, and then that is not so difficult for me. Like Cuban music or Brazilian music, and I found a similarity in African music as well. I think if you are into the dance a little bit, it's easier to get the bass.
Yeah, great. I guess that comes back to being able to absorb the rhythm and and feel it, because then you're not going to be able to play it if you can't absorb it and re-articulate that and bring it out. Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Well, guys, I think if there are no other sort of questions or comments, then yeah, I guess I'll have some thoughts about what we can offer, and maybe we'll just start it running on a monthly basis and see how many people are interested, and take it from there and build it up. And I guess if there are quite a few students involved, then we can start offering more sessions, and having the nights where you can jam along with the drummer and stuff like that, and possibly with this 10-day guitar course, we got a Facebook group there, which we could use sort of community forums and Facebook groups for like accountability and stuff, especially if we're going forward on a sort of designated program. Just give people more of a chance to make sure they're keeping up with the homework. And then also, if we developed something like that, then this might grow at some point to the size where you might be able to use that to find musicians in your local area who are also, if you're a bass player, you might be able to find guitarists in your region who are studying the same kind of material, and you might be able to find local people to jam with who've been going through the same program but on their instrument, and you could put a band together and write a hit, and then the rest is history. I guess. Yeah. Cool. All right, guys. So, so let's leave it there. So, right, thank you very much for coming along and joining us. Good to see such a good turnout, and hopefully these bass lines were helpful. And if you want to get in touch, then you know where to find us. So, yeah, cool.
Thank